Prologue: The Watchers. They came in silence. No grand declarations, no burning skies, just quiet observation, always watching. From the moment the first radio signals left Earth, the elder races took notice. They listened as the world tore itself apart with two global wars. They watched mushroom clouds rise into the stratosphere and the slow, painful emergence of a fractured peace. From orbit, they mapped every city, every missile silo, every radio telescope. They were not gods, just old civilizations, older than Earth's continents. To them, humans were infants wielding fire in a nursery. Yet humanity was not blind. The first crash occurred in 1947. Roswell, they called it. The official story was weather balloons. The truth was more sinister, a reconnaissance drone cloaked in exotic alloys and wrapped around a broken propulsion core. Over the next century, more fell. Some due to Earth's early radar interference, others from sheer arrogance. The elder races underestimated how quickly humans would learn to track them, how rapidly they'd evolve. Crashes were rare, but no longer untraceable. From the deserts of Nevada to the tundras of Siberia, the great powers hoarded what they found. Reverse engineering became Earth's forbidden art. By the late 21st century, the world had unified, not out of ideology, but fear. Fear of what lay beyond, fear of what watched in silence, and a quiet fury began to burn deep within the halls of power. Humanity hated being observed. Chapter 1: The Offer, Geneva, 2137. The world held its breath as the skies above shimmered unnaturally. Dimensional rifts, like slow lightning crawling across glass, opened above the exosphere. A fleet of opulence descended from the void, golden hulls glinting with solar light. Atop the UN spire, the Tri-Council stood behind bulletproof glass, watching with unease. "They don't hide anymore," muttered High Chancellor Okoye of the African Concord. Her voice was low, but the meaning was sharp. "No, they're making a statement," added Secretary Jameson of the American Continental Bloc. "We were ants, now we're vermin." The Eldara delegation arrived in radiant cruisers. They projected themselves as tall, androgynous beings of shimmering skin and flowing, light-infused robes. Their voices harmonized unnaturally, as if many were speaking through one. "You have reached a threshold," the lead Eldara said. "You seek the stars, but they are not for the reckless. We are the Synod of Eldara. We offer peace, knowledge, and the stewardship of your world." President Zhang of the Pan-Pacific Union did not respond immediately. She stood, arms behind her back, and simply stared at them. Then came the answer, broadcast across the planet. "We decline." The room was silent. "For the record," she added, "we don't accept unsolicited supervision." The Eldara diplomat's voice sharpened like a blade. "You do not understand what is coming. Others have advanced too quickly before. All fell. This is not a request. It is for your benefit." Zhang leaned forward, the weight of every reverse-engineered secret etched into her voice. "Then you should have asked before you started spying on us." Chapter 2: The Curtain Rises. 1 week passed. Then Mars went dark. Satellites caught the arrival. A fleet of Eldara warships dropping out of dark space in a crescent arc beyond Phobos. Their vessels resembled cathedral spires stitched to leviathans, beautiful, terrible things built for dominance, not diplomacy. Their message: Earth was under enforced protection. All military activity was to cease. All spacefaring construction was to halt. The Synod would administer compliance. That was their mistake. Above Earth, long-dormant defense satellites blinked awake. Hidden lunar silos cracked open. Orbiting shipyards once thought to be civilians spun to life. And then it happened. With no fanfare, Earth's fleets decloaked. Dozens of heavy cruisers materialized from Saturn's rings, their magnetic wake scattering debris. Mars' polar regions shimmered and revealed dry docks packed with orbital gunships. Neptune's shadow belched forth a spear of supercarriers cloaked for nearly a decade. And from high above the equator, the ISS Leviathan, Earth's flagship, a vessel forged from a fusion of Terran steel and alien gravitic plating, rumbled to life. Humanity had built in silence, learned in secrecy, prepared in rage. Chapter 3: Inferno. Above the opening volleys were pure devastation. Earth's defense fleet struck first. Precision strikes from rail lances punctured Eldara dreadnoughts mid-maneuver. Particle dispersers burned through cruiser armor. Orbital marine shock pods tore through atmosphere toward enemy ships. The Eldara fleet reacted with contempt. They activated graviton displacers and weaponized singularity mines. But their precision was dulled. They had prepared for primitives. They had not prepared for retaliation. Over Jupiter's orbit, Commander Vishnevsky of the Marine 22nd Assault Battalion breached an Eldara flagship with his squad of vacuum-hardened drop troopers. His last transmission was a war cry in Russian. For every century you watched us, we have prepared to end you in seconds. He didn't survive, but the flagship's core detonated 12 minutes later. On Luna, Earth's mass drivers turned the tide. Coordinated planetary targeting systems broke the Eldara fleet's rear formations. 72 hours later, the battle ended. 211 Earth ships lost, nearly 12,000 Terran lives gone. But the Synod's fleet was shattered. Some Eldara were captured, others fled into deep space. None expected humanity's brutality, or precision, or hate. Chapter 4: Aftermath. In the quiet that followed, wreckage littered space from Mars to Europa. Captured Eldara ships were dragged into orbit around Ceres and disassembled by Earth's best minds. Labs ran 30-hour days. AI assistants parsed billions of alien schematics. Medical units studied Eldara physiology. Communications teams decrypted millennia of records. The most shocking discoveries were not weapons, they were historical. Other civilizations had been offered protection, dozens, maybe hundreds. None remained. The Synod had built its dominion by quietly snuffing out civilizations that questioned their place. They never used extermination, just regression. Blockades, starvation, division. Earth had been next. Instead, Earth had broken the cycle. Chapter 5: The Long Dawn. A month after the battle, the Tri-Council gathered for one final declaration. It was transmitted in every language across every continent, projected by relay ships to the void. President Zhang spoke again, her voice firm but calm. We were watched for centuries, judged, labeled, feared. And for what? Because we burned brightly in the dark? Because we rose quickly? We are not your children, not your projects, not your wards. We are human. You feared what we would become if left alone. Now, you should fear what we become when we are united. The Sol system stirred. Shipyards expanded at Saturn, training camps opened on Mars. Neptune's moons became warforged worlds. Earth's new fleet would no longer orbit in silence. It would sail, not to conquer, not yet, but to learn, to seek out the truth behind the Synod, to find the others who had been silenced, and to prepare for what lay beyond the iron veil of the stars. Chapter 6: The Iron Core. The world had changed. The battle of the skies had ignited something deep in the human spirit, an old ember fanned into flame. For generations, humanity had looked up with curiosity. Now they looked with purpose. Fear no longer ruled Earth's orbit. Pride did. The Terran Defense Force was quietly decommissioned. It had served as the knife in the dark, a covert, compartmentalized force built on paranoia and necessity. But it was not the force of a united species. That honor would belong to the Terran Unified Command, a singular authority operating beyond borders, governed by the Tri-Council but independent of national flags. Its three branches were codified under the Aegis Charter. Strategic Command Stratcom, responsible for long-range logistics, planetary infrastructure, and resource allocation across Sol and beyond. Expeditionary Command, Exocom, tasked with exploration, colonization, diplomacy, and first contact protocols. Terran Marine Corps, TMC, Earth's blade and shield, forged for planetary assault, void warfare, and ship-to-ship boarding. Brutal, specialized, respected. Recruitment surged. No longer were they called soldiers or troops. They were operators, pilots, recon raiders, and void breachers. A new oath was sworn by every recruit. From cradle to cosmos, I carry Terra in my blood. I fight not for nation, but for kind. I am the storm in orbit. I am the blade in silence. I am Marine. Under Admiral Jadon Faruqi and General Amelia Rue, a doctrine was born: total integration. The future of war was joint, seamless, and adaptable. Every ship had Marine crews. Every Marine unit had fleet liaisons. No more silos. No more duplication. Only one directive mattered: secure humanity's future among the stars. Chapter 7: Hammer of Terra. They called it the Crucible, a shattered Eldara dreadnought, hollowed and reforged in high Mars orbit. Once a temple of oppression, it was now a proving ground. Inside its restructured decks, thousands of raw recruits underwent training that made Earth's elite special forces look like basic infantry. Gravity drills, vacuum combat, chemical exposure. Psychological stripping. exposure to alien environments, no simulation, no easy outs. Training doesn't prepare you for war, said Drill Commander Hadar Vance. It is war. A training exercise on the sixth rotation involved orbital drops onto the Martian surface at night during a planet-wide sandstorm with only 24 hours to secure an unknown structure guarded by drones. Of 980 recruits, only 437 succeeded. 4 died, all were honored, none were pitied. New gear was issued to each Marine: Hades armor, fully sealed, modular armor with self-healing mesh and hardpoint adaptability. Each Marine's armor was coded to their neural pattern. Ghost AI, a semi-sapient tactical subroutine embedded into each helmet, learning with, not for, the Marine. Kinetic fold blades, vibration-hardened melee weapons capable of slicing through carbon-alloyed armor. MXR-99 pulse rifle, a multi-mode directed energy weapon with autonomous heatsink and target-leading smart optics. Their tactics changed. No longer was the goal to hold terrain. Now the goal was to dominate environments, be it in orbit, undersea, gas giants, or zero-G architecture, and the symbol of the Corps became feared across the stars, a burning trident over a cracked world. Below it a motto in black: they watched, we endured, now we stand. Chapter 8. Fleet Ascendant. In the orbital shadows of Neptune and the steel gardens of Saturn, the Terran fleet was born. The sole shipyard authority, formed as a sovereign multinational entity, was granted unrestricted access to resources, personnel, and manufacturing autonomy. Entire moon bases were converted into fabrication blocks. Ice from Saturn's rings fed hydrogen fusion plants. Solar harvesters near Mercury powered automated forges. The first warships of the Terran fleet weren't the largest, but they were smart. Constellation-class cruisers. Designed for command and control, capable of extended missions with onboard farms, gravity simulators, and quantum-encrypted comms. Bastion-class carriers, each carried 12 squadrons of strike craft, 5,000 Marines, and 6 drop towers for direct planetary insertion. Warden-class corvettes, stealth-configured, armed with gravitic mines and warp-masking hulls, ideal for recon and surgical strikes. Admiral Arturo de Vries, the mastermind behind the fleet's new strategy, developed the Lance Doctrine: never fight fair, never meet force with force. Instead, strike fast, vanish faster, swarm, divide, confuse. Each ship used micro-jump drives, based on reverse-engineered Eldara tech, allowing short, unpredictable warp skips to confound targeting algorithms. Fleet exercises were brutal simulations. AI-generated combat scenarios pitted the new fleet against theoretical Synod armadas, warlord incursions, or rogue AI outbreaks. Losses were simulated, strategies improved. De Vries said it best to his captains: "We are not here to match them. We are here to remind them that Earth does not kneel. When we arrive, they won't see warships. They'll see judgment." Chapter 9. Seeding the Black. 3 years after the Battle of the Skies, Earth expanded beyond Sol. The Helios Initiative launched 3 major expeditions: Erebus 4, 21 light-years, an oceanic, atmosphere-heavy world with aggressive microflora. Hostile but viable, terraforming unnecessary, adaptation was the goal. Galatea, 35 light-years, a rocky, wind-swept planet rich in platinum and super-heavy elements, ideal for heavy industry. Janus Reach, 50 light-years, an anomaly, signs of ruins, a silence that spoke of violence. At Erebus, Marine recon squads established beachheads on fungal cliffs the size of skyscrapers. Megafauna the size of buildings roamed shallow seas. Recon drones recorded a pod of sky whales breaching above floating jungles. Within a year, New Athens was a growing colony, and Fort Meridian stood watch behind anti-orbital cannons. Every colony included civilian habitat domes, Terran embassies, permanent TMC garrisons, AI-operated perimeter drones, subsurface archives to record every discovery, every contact. Fleet Command sent a clear message: no world would be defenseless again. But Janus Reach was different. Chapter 10. Shadows of the Past. The first survey team at Janus Reach arrived with high expectations. Instead, they found graveyards, glass-scarred canyons, city-sized ruins crushed beneath ash and dust. Every structure had been burned or atomized. The atmospheric readings indicated orbital bombardment on a planetary scale. But it wasn't just destruction, it was erasure. And yet, something remained. At the heart of a shattered metropolis stood an obelisk, 40 meters tall, humming softly with alien energy. Upon it, etched in a language none could decipher, was a sequence of glyphs eventually translated by Ghost AI consensus. Beware the hands that offer gifts, then silence, then absence. We said no, they came, we screamed, now we are gone. They were not the first. Earth was not the first. Expeditionary Command sent the full logs back to Luna. Fleet Command paused expansion. All resources were redirected to military buildup and defensive construction. Silent codes were embedded into the next generation of ships. First contact override, the permission to engage Synod fleets at a commander's discretion. Earth had entered a galaxy filled with buried warnings, but they would not retreat. For the first time in known galactic history, a world had survived the Synod's judgment and grown stronger. Chapter 11. The Reluctant Banner. He was not born to rule. Admiral Sheridan Grant had grown up on a frontier colony before the wars began, Nova, Ontario, orbiting Ganymede. Son of asteroid miners, educated in the orbital academies of the Pan-Pacific Bloc. Decorated in the Battle of the Skies, wounded twice, and known for a leadership style that combined unshakable integrity with a tactical mind that thought in centuries, not moments. He didn't want fame, he hated cameras, refused personal flags, wore the same uniform for 3 years, patch-stained and plain. But the people followed him anyway. Fleet Command was growing too large, too fractured. Politics had begun creeping in, ideologues from the old world, corporations seeking influence, factions from Mars and Luna pressing for independence and fleet control. It was Sheridan Grant who refused promotion to Supreme Admiral until the colonies themselves begged for a single voice. And so, with a heavy heart, he accepted the title, Commandant of the Terran Expansionary Fleet. His first address to Earth and the colonies was broadcast from orbit, standing in front of the shattered hull of the Eldara warship Veroth Zell, still half dismantled in dry dock. I didn't ask for this role. I do not wear this rank for honor. I wear it so our children don't forget what was done to us. We do not expand for conquest. We expand because if we do not stand, no one will. And if we fail, let our failure echo through every empire built on silence. The oath of loyalty was revised throughout the fleet. It no longer bore allegiance to governments. It pledged itself to Earth and to the protection of free civilizations across the stars. Chapter 12. Sparks in the Dark. Rumors spread. Synod patrols were no longer invincible, trade routes disrupted, fuel lines burned, entire outposts going dark, but not from Synod aggression, from resistance. In the shadows of the Andari Drift, a freighter emerged with a terrified captain carrying contraband, Synod data cores. DeVries and Grant reviewed the decrypted logs. Over 93 worlds had shown signs of unrest. Dozens of minor species, the Valan, Drossari, Talak Mir, were beginning to question their protectors. Some were vanishing, others were resisting. Most were too weak to succeed alone. Grant saw opportunity, not for conquest, but for reclamation. He called together the Iron Council, a select team of Marine commanders, diplomatic AI clusters, and xenospecialists. Send scouts to the Velen Rim, begin silent contact, offer no weapons, only ears, Grant ordered. Let them see us as survivors, not saviors. When a Synod fleet blockaded a Velen merchant world, Earth didn't send a battle group. They sent 5 Warden-class corvettes, cloaked, scattered like ghosts. One by one, Synod sensor arrays failed. Docking clamps melted. Gravity lines ruptured. The blockade collapsed within hours. No Earth vessel was seen. The message to the Velan people was clear. You are not alone anymore. And so the sparks spread. Across the edges of the galactic map, graffiti etched in glowing symbols began appearing on space stations and outposts. We are still here. Earth hears you. The watched now watch back. Chapter 13. The First Flame. Earth's official diplomatic channels remained silent, but Grant was done waiting for permission. The first full contact mission was launched to Thesari Prime, a world once shattered by Synod bombardment centuries ago, but now quietly repopulated by the Akari, an insectoid race that had hidden in caverns and thermal trenches to survive. The Akari called the Synod Sky Shadows. When Grant's envoy landed in atmospheric drop pods, unarmed, sealed, and respectful, they expected suspicion. Instead, they were met with torches, banners, tears. The Akari High Matron knelt and offered the remains of a broken Synod collar that once adorned her ancestors. You do not come to rule, she said through their translator grid. You come to speak. You are late, but still welcome. Grant himself visited a month later. He stood atop a crystal spire surrounded by insectoid war elders. His armor was unpainted, his escort unarmed. He carried no demands, only a flag. The Akari planted it beside their own. For the first time since the founding of the Synod, a world voluntarily flew the Terran standard alongside its native crest. The alliance was informal, but powerful. What Earth offered was not dominance, but the one thing the galaxy had lost, mutual respect. In the quiet of Thesari Prime's night, General Rue turned to Grant. "History will remember this moment," she said. "We lit the first fire." Grant shook his head. "No, we just gave it shelter." Chapter 14, Embers Gather. The Akari Alliance was a signal flare in the void. Within months of Thesari Prime's declaration, encrypted signals began arriving through deep space relay chains, fragmented messages in dozens of alien tongues. Grant's linguistics A, Lyra, decrypted the emotional subtext first: hope, desperation, readiness. The resistance was not an organization. It was a patchwork: cell networks, exiled nobility, underground scientists, pirate syndicates, and priesthoods once outlawed by the Synod. Most had no name. Some barely had ships. But they had one thing in common: a memory of what came before the Synod's protection. Grant and the Iron Council began organizing what became known as the Free Stars Accord, not a military alliance, but a decentralized pledge. If one world is attacked for rising, the rest will respond. If Earth intervenes, it will never demand tribute or rule. Each world will retain its own sovereignty. Synod artifacts and remains will be studied jointly, never hoarded. Commandant Grant established the Vigilant Network, a fleet of stealth corvettes embedded across resistance worlds. They did not fight, they listened, watched, advised. If needed, they would signal the fleet. Earth was not building an empire. They were arming a rebellion with knowledge and backbone. But the Synod had spies, and soon they learned of Earth's hand in Thesari Prime. Chapter 15, The Synod Strikes. It began with silence. A dozen colonies, small, independent, recently contacted by Earth's envoys, stopped responding. Recon drones found cities turned to glass, bioluminescent forests vaporized, orbital rings reduced to drifting bones of metal. The Synod had responded with what it called a protective intervention protocol. But Grant saw it for what it was: a message in blood. In the center of the devastation, a Synod transmission was discovered, encoded in plasma frequencies. "You do not protect, you provoke. The flame you've lit will be extinguished. You are not shepherds. You are sparks in dry fields. Step back, or we will remind you why silence is peace." Earth did not respond diplomatically. Instead, Admiral Grant summoned the Fleet Council and spoke the first Article 5 directive of the Free Stars Accord. The flame is no longer embers, it is wildfire. The Synod cannot be allowed to make an example of any free world again. We will defend, and we will reclaim what they thought forgotten. The target, Chin's Hold, a fortress world used by the Synod as a re-education colony. Its original people, the Zaurin, were once brilliant engineers and artists. Their culture had been erased over 3 generations, until now. Chapter 16, The War for Chin's Hold. Chin's Hold was a cold planet, its skies tinged in copper, orbiting a dying blue star. The Synod had turned its equator into a prison sprawl. Shielded compounds, gravity-pinned rail networks, atmosphere-burning towers, and orbital sentinels in geosynchronous formations. Grant didn't send a fleet, he sent a hammer. 3 Bastion-class carriers carrying 12,000 Marines, 5 Constellation-class warships for command and long-range bombardment. A stealth screen of 8 Warden-class corvettes for jamming and early infiltration. The TNS Paladin, Earth's most advanced dreadnought, captained by Grant himself. The plan: shock, breach, liberate. First came the jamming fields. Synod satellites went blind. Atmospheric control systems were sabotaged by Marine infiltrators months in advance. Then came the sky drop, entire drop cities falling from orbit in armored silos. They slammed into the frozen plains like descending gods, unfolding into command fortresses within hours. Marine assault squads engaged in brutal, close-quarters combat inside subterranean towers. Every level down was a battle. The Synod had modified the prisoners, neurologically implanted slaves, terrified and confused. Marines carried stunner pods and neuroscramblers instead of lethal rounds in many sectors. They weren't just liberating land, they were liberating minds. Above, Earth's fleet engaged the Synod armada in the throat of Chin, a narrow orbital lane used for transport. The TNS Paladin unleashed its Helios Lance, a directed fusion beam weapon capable of burning through 4 kilometers of alloy at a time. It speared 3 Synod carriers before they could charge their displacers. The battle lasted 6 days. By the 7th, the Synod fleet withdrew. Earth lost 2 Bastion-class ships and over 1,700 Marines. But they had taken Chin's hold. For the first time in galactic memory, a Synod world had been reclaimed by force, and the original population lived to see the sunrise. In the victory ceremony, Grant refused to wear his dress uniform. He stood on the surface in combat armor in front of the ancient flag of the Zauran people and placed the Terran standard beside it. Not above, beside. You are not ours, you are your own, but you will never be alone again. Across the galaxy, eyes widened, ears leaned closer, and somewhere, in the darkness beyond known stars, the Synod's high circle convened in panic. The era of silence was ending. Chapter 17, Signals from the Deep. 4 weeks after the liberation of Chin's hold, a deep space listening post near TRAPPIST-1 intercepted a signal. It wasn't Synod. It wasn't human. It was old. The signal was buried beneath layers of encryption far older than even the Eldara Synod. Data pulses that bent standard physics. Subharmonic patterns in frequencies humanity had only theorized about. Gravitic whispers, not sound or radio. Sentience woven into vibration. It repeated every 37 minutes. When the signal was stabilized and passed through Earth's deep code AI array, it translated into a single phrase. The Watchers turned from us. We endured. The Harbinger wakes. You lit the beacon. The transmission source was from beyond the galactic drift, past the edge of the known Synod dominion, near a collapsed star where no colony or ship had ever returned. The signal had 2 signatures, one organic, one artificial. Terran science teams debated endlessly. Some argued it was a remnant of a species exterminated by the Synod millennia ago. Others feared something worse, a survivor of something that had preyed upon the Synod before they became what they were. Admiral Sheridan Grant reviewed the data in silence. Then he issued a quiet order. Form a deep-range task force. No civilian contact. We're sending emissaries with guns, not diplomats. Earth had lit a fire in the galaxy. Now, something was stirring beyond the flames. Chapter 18. The Synod's Last Doctrine. Within the Synod's high circle, panic fermented into cruelty. The loss of Chin's hold was more than military. It was ideological failure. The illusion of omnipotence had shattered. The silent dominion, their greatest myth, was unraveling. For the first time in 3,000 years, the High Circle activated Protocol Exodus, a relic of the ancient wars. They called it the Coral Mind, an artificial god brain created from the harvested consciousness of extinct species. It had no body, no voice, just intent. A war intelligence beyond reason. It could control fleets, predict rebellions, shape planetary thought via long-range signal resonance. The Synod had used it once, long ago, when a civilization known only as the Kalari had refused to bend. The Kalari no longer existed. The Coral Mind had been locked away after that war, hidden in the folds of a dying nebula. But now the Synod reconnected its containment architecture. The stars shivered. Dozens of resistance worlds began experiencing dreamfall, waves of psychic intrusion. Populations fell into synchronous hallucinations. Unrest, madness, self-destruction. Fleet Command picked up subtle, recurring harmonics on all resistance communications. Earth's science teams called it neuro-resonant interference. General Rue had another name. They've weaponized fear, and they're singing it into the minds of free worlds. A special task force was formed, Shadow Group Hydra, composed of Marines with neural resilience, experimental ghost AIs, and enhanced isolation tech. Their mission: locate the Coral Mind, survive its influence, and destroy it. Chapter 19, Sword Beyond the Veil. At the edge of the known galaxy, near the collapsed star Avant Horizon, Earth's long-range stealth ships arrived. The system was fractured, planetary debris and lightless objects in free drift. Radiation storms raged like angry oceans, but within it floated something massive, a black structure kilometers across. It resembled a cathedral torn from time and forged in the void. Organic spires melded with machine angles, no lights, no movement, yet it pulsed like a heart. It was not of the Synod. It was older. The Echo Bastion, Shadow Group Hydra, deployed in silence. Their approach was filled with static and hallucinations, memories from their past, voices of the dead, faces of the fallen. One Marine took off his helmet and began speaking to someone who wasn't there. But the ghost AIs held. Inside, they discovered alien remains, mummified or shattered, held in stasis fields of unknown purpose. One wall contained what looked like a planetary map of the galaxy, half of it marked with extinction glyphs. And in the center, encased in a grav cage, was the coral mind. It resembled a star collapsed into cognition, fractals of light, memory, and shrieking data. It tried to speak to them, to mimic loved ones, to offer peace. But the ghost AI Spartan 3, bonded to Commander Indira Kell, issued a final override. Execute Omega Burn, no dialogue, no gods. A singularity charge was deployed. The bastion shattered in light. The coral mind died screaming, not in voice, but in the way minds crack under unbearable truth. Hydra did not all return, but Earth had cut out the Synod's soul. For the first time since its rise, the Synod stood naked, brutal but mortal. Across the stars, resistance forces erupted in joy. And Grant stared into the darkness where the bastion once floated, whispering, if this is what they needed to win before, then what else is sleeping? Chapter 20, The Quiet Crown. The fall of the coral mine sent ripples through the galaxy. Entire sectors of the Synod's vast surveillance and control networks went dark overnight. Resistance worlds, once cautious, scattered, rose up in full revolt. Systems long subdued by memory and myth now surged with rebellion. The Free Stars Accord became more than whispers. It became an uprising. Zauran engineers from Chin's Hold distributed planetary shield generators reverse-engineered from Terran tech. Akari scouts trained new guerrilla cells in Synod-held regions. Velen artists broadcast liberation propaganda across Synod comrings using songs laced with neurostim codes. And leading the charge through the collapsing Synod core systems was Earth's third expeditionary armada, with Admiral Sheridan Grant at its head. But with every victory, a question grew louder. What comes next? Would Earth replace the Synod? Would the Free Stars replace one empire with another? Would liberation end in sovereignty or dependence? In the shadows of a shattered Synod station above the gas giant Phalon, Grant convened the final council of the Accord. Present were the Akari Matron General, the Velen Circle of Flame, the Zauran Speaker of Songs, Human General Ru, dozens of other species who had once knelt under the Synod's shadow, 1,000 representatives in one ancient hall. Sheridan Grant stood, unadorned, his armor battered and unpolished. We did not come to rule, he began. We came because no one else could. But now you are awake, you are many, and we are one. He paused, scanning the gathered leaders. Earth will not plant its flag across your worlds. We have built fleets, yes, but not to conquer. We've bled for you, but not to bind you. We only ask one thing in return. Never let another Synod rise again. Not from Earth, not from anywhere. And then, without ceremony, he stepped down from his post as commandant. The hall fell into stunned silence. General Ru rose in protest. The Velan delegates froze in ritual shock, but Grant only smiled. You do not need another sword. You need 1,000 hands building a new galaxy. My job was to open the gate. Yours is to walk through it. And so the Free Stars Accord became a true alliance, not ruled from Earth, but rotating its leadership among all liberated systems. Earth retained influence, but not authority. In the years that followed, the Synod shattered into minor powers. Its high circle was disbanded, its archives opened, its remaining weapons dismantled. The bastion of Thessari became the Accord's capital. Earth returned to quiet strength, maintaining its fleets and outposts only where asked. As for Grant, he disappeared from command. Some say he returned to Nova Ontario and built a home beneath its blue ice. Others believe he took a single Warden-class scout beyond the galactic edge to explore the signal's origin, far beyond even the coral mine's reach. He left behind no statues, no personal memoirs, no monuments. Only a quote carved into the foundation stone of the Accord Assembly Hall. The galaxy does not need kings, it needs memory. So when darkness rises again, and it will, remember we stood once, together, and we will again. Epilogue, Beneath the Iron Veil. Long after the war ended and the Accord grew strong, explorers uncovered fragments of pre-Synod ruins, evidence of a time before the Watchers. They spoke of an age when stars were free and all species reached upward together, unshackled by fear. That age had ended in silence, but Earth, once watched in fear and scorn, had shattered that silence. And beneath the iron veil that once cloaked the stars, a new light had risen, not from divine right, but from choice. Humanity had not become rulers. They had become reminders. That fear could be challenged, that chains could be broken, and that sometimes, even in the darkest void, the fire begins with a single spark, carried by the angry, unbowed children of Earth.